Well, it was really interesting. The first 4 days we were down there, one of the things that was most shocking to me is really the contrast, having always worked in the private sector, to comparing that to being in the government. Just it's run nothing like private sector. And so that's a little bit of a learning curve for me. It's interesting just seeing the operations, how everything works, learning people and alliances and people's different positions, and building those relationships on how important that is. And you really need to do that early to be able to know what's going on and to be aware of bills and things of that nature. So it was an interesting experience, that's for sure. You can have 80 people that all have a particular issue. Let's say, for example, we all care about school choice issues or privacy issues or parental rights, transparency, things of those nature. We could all be submitting those bills and nobody else knows. So that's a little odd to me. But I'm finding out how you find out about those bills. It's all about relationships and talking with people and seeing what's going on. So some of the bills that I hopped on were House Bill 26. That was with Felicia Rayburn. And that really prohibits public agencies using federal, state, and local tax dollars for lobbying. It's a good cause. So that's something, let's save taxpayer money. Let's not waste it that way. Another one that I got on really are brought to me by constituents. House Bill 72 that Rawlings and myself are working on was brought to me by a constituent talking about, hey, let's get rid of the inheritance tax. So that was on my summer reading plan, and I investigated that, and Steve and I came up with that. Like, this is silly. Why do we have this inheritance tax? So that was one that co-sponsored. House Bill 74, that has to deal with getting rid of fluoride out of waters, letting local municipalities decide if they want to put fluoride in the water or not. Not really an issue that would have been in my top 5, and this actually came from somebody who's not even a constituent of mine. She's down in Harrison County, but brought it to my attention and lobbied to me the importance of it. I'm like, I'm with that. So some of those I have been on, actually all the ones I've co-signed have been brought to me really by constituents or people that are coming and making a strong argument. But what I'm learning is there are a lot of good bills that are already there or will be coming. I don't feel the need to co-sponsor all of them, because when I am on a bill that it says something about me, it defines me, and it is the whole purpose of why I ran. So my scope is going to continue to be on getting rid of mandates for vax, masks, whatever. We still are not free from those. Things that give us our liberties, things that cut our taxes, certainly issues with schools, giving us school choice, parental rights, transparency, things of that nature. And those are things I want to keep my signature on and keep involved with, because those are the things I ran on are most important to me. When I went door to door, I knocked thousands of doors and I heard people. I did a lot of learning. Certainly I was running because of our constitutional freedoms and liberties that we lost during the lockdowns, and never wanting to see that again, and wanting somebody in Frankfort to push back on that more strongly. But what I heard a lot about were during the lockdowns, not only what people's children experienced by not being in school and by being masked and the things that they suffered, certainly that is leading to the significant mental health issues we're seeing now, but it's our healthcare system. So being a healthcare worker myself, I've always worked in states. They had certificate of need. It certainly was not enforced. And that is something that has become very near and dear to my heart. I struggle with a monopolistic healthcare system. I cannot understand the certificate of need, and people may not really understand what that is, but it limits who can come into the state of Kentucky from, opening a hospital or ambulatory service, or there's a whole list of services that need to go through the Cabinet of Health to be approved to be able to come in and compete. I'm not really a fan of that, because we can see in Northern Kentucky, we are a large population. Our tri-county area of Boone, Kenton, Campbell County is larger than in Lexington, and Lexington has multiple hospitals that people can choose from. Louisville has a larger population than we do, but they also have multiple hospitals that they can pick from. Here in our tri-county area, we cannot. We only have St. Elizabeth system. And you may love it or you may hate it, but a lot of people that I talk to have experienced significant issues with them, and they would like to have a choice. And for myself, I'm a free market capitalist. I believe a competition is good. It raises all ships. And I would like to see more of our economic dollars stay here, our healthcare dollars stay here in Kentucky versus going across the river. When I first moved to the state, one of the first things people told me was, if you're sick, go across the river. And I find that to be true. A lot of the young moms that I hang out with or mentor, all of them have had their babies north of the river. When people have serious health issues, they go north of the river. We don't have a trauma 1 level hospital in northern Kentucky. You've got to go north of the river. So it's puzzling to me. And the argument that St. Elizabeth's will say, justifying the certificate of need is, well, it provides better access, it keeps affordability, and, gives quality of care. I would disagree with that on every level. If you have no competition, you have no reason to improve. And I would like doctors and nurses, maybe they would like to have a different option where to work. Maybe they don't want to just be in the St. E system. They may love it and they may want to choose to stay there. But if they don't, there are no other options here in Northern Kentucky. So that is one of the bills that I will be working on, so that we'll give other hospitals a chance to come to Northern Kentucky if they so desire. It's jacketed, but I have not filed it yet. The certificate of need is a really complex issue, and it touches lots of different services. So I'm still in the process. I'm still learning an awful lot about it. I'm wanting to meet with some other key players. A lot of people have seen the bill. We've talked about it, and just making sure that it's something that has a shot of making it. It is not a legislative priority for leadership this session. I do believe that it being a short session and that there are so many new people that they, are really trying to pump the brakes a little bit and try to return to what the original intent of a short session in odd number years is really to clean up maybe what had happened the year before and do some fine tuning, but not really introducing a lot of legislation. So I don't know if it will even make it out of committee. I'm certainly going to present it, but I need to get a little bit more input before I send it in. But what I would like to do, the whole purpose of my bill, what I'm trying to do is when you have our tri-counties that abut another state that has less restrictive certificate of need, and both Indiana and Ohio, they only regulate or have the certificate of need for long-term care facilities. In Kentucky, we have tons. Like, you can't bring in hospitals, ambulatory service, things of those natures. You can't do it without the certificate of need, and you have to do a very expensive application. And the people that are involved in making that decision, well, their financial interests are at stake. So of course they're going to be apt to deny it. I'm going to continue to argue, why can't we have the same standards that Ohio has, Indiana has, and Tennessee, the state that we're trying to compete with on a tax purpose? We are changing our entire tax code to be more competitive with Tennessee by increasing consumption taxes so that we can decrease the personal income tax. Well, Tennessee just repealed a whole bunch of its certificate of needs in 2021, again, making them a more friendly state for having more choices with healthcare, where Northern Kentucky, we don't. We have one choice. It's obviously a hot issue, but it's something that is going to make, obviously, the St. Elizabeth system upset. It's going to make the Chamber of Commerce upset. Other entities, they may not fully support it, but I would like their support. I would like the League of Cities. I'd like the ambulances and firefighters. I would like them to be supportive of this bill. So we need to look at ways that we can make that happen so where they're not negatively impacted. I've heard from physicians, who were fired because they wouldn't take the vax. I heard a lot of stories that were disconcerting to me. I wrote a lot of sympathy notes. I gave a lot of hugs out there to people who had lost people, really difficult circumstances that didn't need to be. And I'm just wondering, if we had more choices, would some of those outcomes have been different? And it's not a knock on the physicians or on the nurses. I don't think they're the issue. I think they are caught in the system, and they may love it. They may love their employer, and I'm glad that they do. But I'm wondering, for ones that would like to have choices, I think they should be allowed to have that and not have to cross the Brent Spence and go up to Ohio. Coming from healthcare, I was always puzzled on a monopolistic healthcare system, and I have my own issues on there, but I think a lot of that may be anecdotal. I think many of us could say those stories, but we can probably have just as many people say, fabulous things about the system, and that may be true. But I became aware of it when I heard so many people tell me what they have suffered. So if I can make a difference on that, I want to. And again, I feel like this is kind of in my wheelhouse. I've been in healthcare. I've worked at a freestanding not-for-profit hospital that only had 119 beds, and we did catastrophic care. So they were life flighted into a much larger hospital next to us, and they took their, a lion's share of the insurance money, and then we had to rehabilitate them. And it's really, really expensive to do it, and we were able to stay viable. So it's an option. I believe it absolutely is an option, and it provides, great care. The argument will be from St. Elizabeth's is that 70% of our reimbursement comes from Medicare and Medicaid. Well, who's making up the other 30%? So are we cost shifting to those of us that pay a lot of money for insurance? I've also heard, well, if another hospital comes in, they're going to cherry pick and they're going to take the most lucrative and leave us with all the indigent and Medicare, Medicaid. Well, make your services competitive. If somebody make your MRIs the places that people want to go versus Christ or UC or whatever. So I would say up your game.
As a constituent, how do we get involved? How do we help you?
Well, I'm really glad you asked that. I've really become aware, since we are Northern Kentucky, our media market is Cincinnati, right? All of our news comes out of Cincinnati. So we know everything going on in Ohio, but unless it's something pretty explosive in Kentucky, most people in our area don't know. Our newspapers, if you get the Inquirer, it's basically Cincinnati. We do have a few here in Northern Kentucky. I'm not sure the readership. I'm not sure how much the day-to-day coverage of Frankfort is, but I think we're at a huge disadvantage. So people flip on their local news and they kind of see what's going on there, or they watch Fox News or whatever. What I'm encouraging people to do is pick a cause. Find something that you're concerned about, whether it's privacy, it's issues with the schools. Like I met with a group of dads this week. It was really encouraging to me. A group of dads is concerned about what's happening in the schools. But I also hear from them, man, I'm working. I've got kids at home. I'm a coach. I lead Boy Scouts. They're busy. I find many people that have these concerns, they're busy, they're doing their lives, and the free time to further their cause isn't there. So the default is, well, I'm going to call my state rep, and kudos to people who know who they are. Most people don't even know. But to kick it down to Frankfort, I would say that's a mistake. It needs to be here local. For example, there was going to be a large warehousing project from Cincinnati that was going to come in to Chambers Road. People got wind of it before the permits were voted on, and they packed out that planning and zoning meeting, and that went from 5 o'clock until I think midnight. People making their voices known, and guess what? It stopped that project. They voted to table it at least for probably 10 years. So that kept those warehouses that weren't really necessary from taking over beautiful horse farms and going into residential areas. So people can make a difference. They just have to get involved. If you're concerned about the schools, I would implore people to go to your school board meetings, get more involved with an organization that helps with that. I think the Boone County Republican Party has done a fantastic job with mobilizing people, whether it's election integrity or local issues, being aware of what's going on at our city council meetings, having people there and reporting and watching it, having the Moms for Liberty, having those groups going on, is finding a local avenue to become engaged. Frankfort's not going to fix it. Washington's not going to fix it. You got to fix it in your own backyard. And that's what I would encourage people to do. So along the lines of getting involved, Chet Hand and I, the county commissioner, we are holding a Community Connect on February 2nd at 7 o'clock at the Triple Crown Country Club. And we're doing that mainly, anybody is welcome to come, but it's mainly addressing the Richwood corridor for people to understand what's going on in there on Richwood, over on the Triple Crown side, which is certainly going to impact that, as well as Steeplechase, what's going to go further down Chambers that way, the St. Elizabeth's property, that 44 acres that's there, kind of what's happening with the roads and the interchanges. Speaking to those issues, I think people will be surprised, as I was, to find out what's going on. But it's an opportunity for people to learn about that, but also engagement. We would love to hear, certainly for me, the state level, what are the issues that people of this district are most concerned about? And certainly for Chet Hand, addressing him as county commissioner, what are things going on county level, things that he would be privy to? We're coming certainly with that information and some maps and telling you what's happening, but we would certainly welcome the input. And that's also a good avenue for people if they have concerns that we can kind of get you plugged in with various organizations here at the local level to be effective, productive, and to accomplish a task. I cover most of Union and about 4 precincts of Florence. If you're looking Richwood Road, kind of north with some carve outs here and there, and that, like I said, most of Union, and then up into Florence, Long City 175, up near Mall Road a little bit, Oak Brook, parts of Oak Brook, that area over there. You can contact me. You can email me at marianne.proctor@lrc.ky.gov. That's the most effective way, or to call the office. What is ineffective is when people, groups of people sent in form emails that all you've done is cut and paste, and you bomb every rep and senator down there. That's going to be filtered out. It's going to be the spam filter is going to get it, so we won't see it. If they are out of district, again, those are filtered out. The people that we're very responsive to the people in our district. We want to hear the people from the district. So if you call or email me, it's the way I'm most likely going to see it. If I am, if it's going to go to my legislative assistant, she will take a message for me and we'll put that on my desk. It's called a green slip, and those are on my desk every day when I go in. I can see what your concern is and be able to address it. So I think that's probably the most effective way. Certainly calling me. I always welcome the constituent input, feedback. I always appreciate that. I like to know what's going on, good, bad, or indifferent. So the committees I'm on, local government, which I'm really pretty excited about because local issues are so important to me. So I'm excited about that. We have not met yet. I'm also on family services, which is more of the Medicaid, foster care kind of system. It's that broke off from the health services, and they've divided that a little bit. And then I'm on the veterans, military affairs, public protections. And I'm pretty excited about that too. I worked with the military for 2 years in Project Victory, helping guys coming back from Iraq and Afghanistan before the bases were recognizing traumatic brain injury and PTSD. And I worked with them in a comprehensive rehabilitation program, trying to get them from the battlefield back into the community. So that is near and dear to my heart. So I'm really excited to do that. And I've been adopted by motorcycle Marines up here, and they've been really kind to me, and I've had a lot of fun going to their events and being involved. So I'm real excited about that and the opportunities. None of my committees have met yet, so I'm looking forward to when they do and kind of seeing what our agenda is and what we're going to be working on. Our veterans have sacrificed so much for us, and it's not like they are paid millions of dollars. So I think that our healthcare for our veterans should be the best. I think they deserve that. And that is something that I will be advocating for and a champion for. Okay, I know one of them, House Bill 30, that is going to be controversial, and he's purposely holding off. I don't know why it's controversial. It's, boys using boys' bathrooms, girls using girls' bathrooms and lockers. But apparently that's already heated. I know there's some other people who are doing a lot with the transparency in the schools, parental rights, and it's a pretty encompassing bill. It's pretty lengthy, the one I'm aware of. But the thing is, like I was saying earlier, you don't know what everybody's filing. So the only way you find out is kind of word of mouth. There's going to be, I think, over 100 bills introduced on February 7th. Well, that's a lot of bills to go through. And until they get assigned to committees, I'm not sure it's a good use of time to read all of them, because many of them are never going to see the light of day. So you want to see the ones that actually make it to the committees and get a reading, and definitely a second reading. Those are the ones that you're going to want to follow because they have a chance of making it out. When we sponsor bills, I think it is good to be out there because you're putting your stamp on what you agree with and what you want to do. You can certainly do that by your vote. But one word of caution by sponsoring a lot of bills is that they are subject to change, to have amendments thrown on them, or to be completely substituted, and they may be something that becomes unrecognizable that you don't want your name on. You can pull your sponsorship from it, but if you've got 20 bills out there that you're co-sponsoring, that's a lot to follow. We'll probably be using a little caution on some of those because I don't want my name attached to something that starts off really good and then with amendments or substitutions goes south. You don't always need to speak from the floor. A lot of the speeches, by the time it gets to the floor, what you all see on KET, that's theater. That has already been planned out, written out. It's all theater. The real things that are happening are going on in the committee meetings, and that's where the real arguments are and the real negotiations are. It's not on the floor. The floor, it's just done deal. Everybody's looking for their soundbite on KET, or for the opposition. that's all they can do. All right, they don't have the power to really do much, so they just get up and filibuster. So it's entertaining, that's for sure.
So if we see something in a committee that's hitting a second reading that we're really upset with, that's the ones we need to contact our legislators or show up to the committee hearings.
Yes, because that's getting traction. It's, it's getting a second reading, it takes 3. And so it's probably going somewhere. So if it's still in committees and it's not picked up anywhere, probably not going anywhere. And again, they cautioned us that this, the leadership certainly has their priorities of what they would like to do this session. Yeah, I'm not aware of all of what those are, but I know that they're not going to be pushing through all the things that all of us are bringing. Private sector and public sector are very different. Private sector, I mean, I knew when I was supposed to show up who my boss was. I had, keys and passwords and parking passes and things like that. And government, it doesn't. There's a lot of inefficiencies. It's an interesting system down there. You are going around selling your own bill. So there's a lot of that goes on. That's how you find out, once you see them filed. Clearly, I'm on the floor when they're bringing them up and they're filing they're on the floor and you're hearing the title just as the rest of you are in KET, and then you can go and read them. But there's hundreds of bills and there's a lot more coming. Some people, one of the controversial ones, I think they wanted to wait until we're in session. It's a little difficult when in this recess. It's a really odd time because we're not down in Frankfort, but there's still a lot going on, a lot of events, bill writing, things going on. There's still a lot of horse trading going on in the recess. It's difficult because you feel disconnected because I'm not down in my office. I've been down there several days, but you're not there and not all the players are there. So it's a little bit challenging, this recess period. So I'm hoping that when we go back that we have the continuity and there's more of a normal ebb and flow of the daily activities. But I think people did not want to drop controversial bills in the recess because we're not there, right? To try to field calls or when we're not there to get those calls or to necessarily get the emails. Better to be there back in the office where we're accessible. I mean, there's a lot of people down there that this is, their part-time job. They have other full-time jobs that they do. I have no idea how they manage it all. This is truly public service. For me, I'm working every day. I don't know how people who don't have a great support system at home or a lot of help or are doing other jobs are able to manage it all or to do it well. It's not just, it's 30 days, and odd number years and 60 days and even, well, not really. I mean, that's just when we're getting paid. Really, it's every day. So during the rest of the year, my understanding is that in the interim, we have committee meetings that are a couple days of every month. It depends on how many committees you're on and I guess the number of days you go on, if they happen to meet on the same day or not. I don't know. The interim schedule doesn't come out, I believe, until the end of May, maybe June, so we know exactly what it is. We do meet throughout the year. It's just a couple days each month versus, being in the whole month. I think a lot of constituents don't really understand the process. I think they think their rep has a whole lot of power and the way to go down there is just be a flamethrower and take it to the man. And that's really not how it works. When you're a freshman like myself, your power is pretty limited. You're one vote. You're not a committee chair or a vice chair. You don't have the influence yet as a freshman. Everybody has an issue, right? We all have something that we feel passionate about, that we want our senator or our state rep to fix. Well, that may not be doable. And I think people lose sight of everybody has an issue and everybody voices it. So we have to look at what are the priorities of the state? What is the crises of the state? What needs to be addressed first? What is vitally important to, the economic health of our state and looking at it from a bigger level versus a micro level? Looking macroly, what is going on with the state? What are we doing with our underemployment? I mean, our employment status is terrible. How do we get people back to work? What are we doing about the mental health crises that is just gripping our state? The fentanyl that is all in our state. Those, I would say, are top tier issues, where some of these other issues that we get, not to say they're not important, but in the big picture of everything is kind of recognizing where those issues fall. And I think I wasn't even aware of that as much as till I've been down there. Now I'm seeing certainly the bigger picture and I'm feeling, oh my goodness. I mean, everybody's calling about every issue they have, which maybe isn't, a top 10 concern, but wants it addressed like today. And sometimes that's just not going to be possible. And that doesn't mean that, I'm deaf to it. It just means we've got these other issues that are higher priority that the leaders who ultimately determine the course of what goes to committees and what comes out of committees, what they feel is most important. Well, thank you guys. I appreciate y'all and all that you're doing. And
I know it's tough being a freshman, learning everything, but we do appreciate you. We love you, and you're always in my prayers.
thank you. I know I feel it. I can't tell you how encouraging it is when I get random texts like I'm praying for you. I cannot tell you how many times that spurs me on. And it usually comes when I'm like, oh my gosh, why am I doing this? So thank you. I feel it. It's not empty and it's sustaining me. So thank you guys.
Yes,
All
thank
right.
you.